So today we're going to start talking about 10.3, which is all about equivalent ratios. So I'm going to go ahead and start. It should start with part 1, but I'm going to flip forward to key concept.
This model shows the ratio 2 to 6. 2 blue circles to 6 red squares. To find an equivalent ratio by multiplying, multiply each term of the ratio by the same non-zero number. You can multiply each term by 2. First, multiply 2 times 2. Then, multiply 6 times 2. The ratio 2 to 6 and the ratio 4 to 12 are equivalent ratios. To find an equivalent ratio by dividing, divide each term of the ratio by the same non-zero number. You can divide each term by 2. First, divide 2 by 2. Then, divide 6 by 2. The ratio 2 to 6 and the ratio 1 to 3 are equivalent ratios. So, the ratios 1 to 3, 2 to 6, and 4 to 12 are all equivalent ratios.
And again, the reason why they're all equivalent is because they'll all simplify down to your 1/3. Let's go back to part 1. You can use double number lines to find equivalent ratios. Example, if I have 5 to 10, if I move over, a ratio that will be equivalent to 5 to 10 will be 4 to 8, okay, 3 to 6, 2 to 4, 1 to 2, and we know that because they all simplify down to 1 to 2. Use the number lines to find equivalent ratios of 9/12. So you'll see that you use the number line to find equivalent ratios. So they asked us to find 9 and 12, okay? So if I have 9/12 and I keep my zeros lined up, I know that two equivalent ratios equivalent to 9/12 would be 6/8, and those both simplify down to 3/4, okay? So if you move left from 9 to 12 to find equivalent ratios with lesser terms, we have 6/8, 3/4, okay? Now if you move right from 9/12, numbers are going to get bigger, so these are equivalent ratios with bigger terms. We have 12/16, 15/20, so the ratios 3 to 4, 6 to 8, and 12 to 16, and 15 to 20 are equivalent to 9/12. Make sure that's in your notes. Okay, go ahead and use a number line. You can either draw it or you can do it in your head. Use a number line to find ratios equivalent to 8 to 10. Here's some answer choices you might look at. I'm going to move on to part 2. Go ahead and write the equivalent numbers that you think are equivalent ratios.
A volunteer at an animal shelter recorded the ratio of the number of dogs adopted to the number of cats adopted each month. She finds all the ratios are equivalent. Complete the table.
Alright, it must be lunchtime. Dogs and cats eat different types of food. The volunteers at the shelter can use the fact that the ratios are equivalent to decide how much of each type of food to buy. I think I'll go help out. You look like you need a little bit of kibble. Probably a lot. I can give you a big bowl. Can you talk? Speak to me. There you go. That's cool.
So I always go through and I look and I say, okay, what is my ratio in simplest form? And I know it's going to be 4 to 5. So then I ask myself, well, how do I get from 4 to 8? And I know that 4 times 2 is equal to 8. So if I times 2 here, I must have to times 2 here to get this middle number. So what's 5 times 2? Well, 5 times 2 is 10. So 8 to 10 is my ratio here. Now, how do I get from 4 to 12 using multiplication? Well, 4 times 3 is 12. So what's 5 times 3? Well, 5 times 3 is 15. So 15 must go inside of this box.
The ratio of the number of dogs adopted in January to the number of cats adopted in January is 4 to 5. You can represent this using a model. Eight dogs were adopted in February. Use the information that all the ratios are equivalent to find the number of cats adopted in February. 4 times 2 equals 8. So, multiply 5 times 2. 10 cats were adopted in February. 12 dogs were adopted in March. Use the ratio of adopted dogs to adopted cats in January to find the number of cats adopted in March. 4 times 3 equals 12. So, multiply 5 times 3. 15 cats were adopted in March.
Again, they did the same thing. Look at your tables and say, okay, well, what's the relationship here? Well, 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12. So if I'm multiplying by 2 or 3 on this side, I need to multiply by 2 or 3 on this side as well. So go ahead and write a ratio equivalent to 3/4. So if you need to draw a table, go ahead. So here's 3, here's 4. Okay, go ahead and write an equivalent ratio. Now you know this is in simplest form. So if you multiply 3 times 10, you're going to have to multiply 4 times 10. If you do 3 times 2, you'll have to do 4 times 2. Whatever you multiply one by, you must multiply the other by.